Okay, let's unpack this. We've been handed a truly provocative body of work. It's S. Kaçmaz's Sociogony, or Sociogony.
Mm.
And it doesn't just, suggest minor edits to social theory. It's basically telling everyone, Marx, Weber, Durkheim, that they started from the wrong place entirely.
It is a fundamental reframing. And I think for you listening, the mission today is to really grasp the scale of this shift. Kaçmaz argues that almost all modern social analysis rests on one critical shared error.
Which is that we assume society is born from conflict.
Exactly. A struggle for power, for class, for resources. Sociogony says the origin is precisely the opposite. Society is born from alliance,
No.
from what Kaçmaz calls ittifak, or a kid.
And if you make that one change, if you start with alliance, then the common modern readings, the ones we're all taught, they just start to fall apart.
They become flawed almost instantly.
Kaçmaz calls it 3 wrong turns, 3 mistakes you're forced to make if you put conflict first.
And what's so interesting is that they're not separate errors. They all feed into each other.
Right. So first, you read all of history through the lens of conflict. That's mistake number 1. Second, you have to read religion through consciousness. You see it as an illusion, a psychological crutch, or what did Marx call it? The ustiapa?
The superstructure.
Yeah.
Something built on top of the real economic base.
And the third mistake, and this is a big one for economics, is that you read the economy through the commodity, through the meta. You assume economic life just begins the moment 2 people trade a finished product. It completely ignores the social agreement you need just to trust that product in the first place.
So let's go back to that foundation. Society from alliance. We should probably be really clear about what Kaçmaz even means by society.
Right. Kaçmaz is very clear on this. Society is not a biological given. Humans are herd animals. We live in groups. That's just biology.
Sure.
But a society, that's something different. It's an achievement. It's the product of a conscious, willful alliance. An ittifak. Its origin isn't genetic, it's contractual.
So people are actively choosing to create it. It's a deal. It's an enforceable contract to share an existence and, critically, to guarantee a future.
That sounds like a political treaty or something. But Kaçmaz says this founding alliance as a kid is way more than that. So what makes it the absolute bedrock?
It's the sheer depth of the commitment. According to Sociogony, this alliance has to regulate and guarantee 3 specific things all at once. It's a package deal.
Okay.
First, the agreement has to involve the sharing and exchange of product or sacrifice. In other words, the regulation of resources.
Right, that makes sense. Resources are always where conflict starts.
Precisely. The second aspect is the regulation of bodies and sexual relations. You have to know who belongs to whom, how the group is going to reproduce itself.
Okay.
And the third, and this is maybe the most radical part, is the sharing of children and their connection to the future.
That's the part that really stands out. It forces the idea of the child right into the heart of the foundational contract. Most economic histories just leave that out entirely.
Absolutely. If we're really analyzing the structure of society, the child is the central figure, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Because the child is the future connection. If your contract only guarantees the present, this year's harvest or safety for now, it's just a temporary gathering. It's not a society.
So without a plan for the next generation.
You have no social continuity. You have no society. It dissolves.
And Kaçmaz uses this to explain something we see everywhere, right? Why is the child in literally every known society surrounded by the most intense and important rituals?
It's because the child is a living, breathing proof of the contract. The rituals, birth ceremonies, naming, coming of age, they aren't just celebrations. They're the public, legal, and sacred formalization of the deal. They announce that this contract will outlive the people who signed it.
Okay, so if the child is the guarantee of the future, the whole system has to be designed to protect that guarantee. And this is where we pivot to religion. This is that second modern wrong turn, the idea that religion is just an illusion.
Yes, the transition is perfect. If society is a contract, then religion is not some metaphysical add-on. It's not a superstructure. It is purely functional.
So what is it?
Religion is the language, the record, and the memory of those alliances. It takes that social contract and it makes it sacred, which just means it makes it untouchable, permanent, and continuous.
It's jarring to think about it that way. If religion is the contract, it means we've misunderstood the role of belief for centuries. And the implication is, it's that the contract comes before everything.
Before everything. If religion is that first record, then without it, you can't even start production because you can't define property,
Money can't gain trust.
because there's no faith in a continuous future. And you
Correct.
can't write history because there's no social story to record.
It creates that first shared trust, the bedrock.
It creates the initial common ground, that shared faith in the system, what Kaçmaz calls amin. And this isn't just passive belief, you see, it's the active faith that the social covenant will be enforced, that it will continue.
And this totally changes how we look at something like the temple. It stops being just a place for prayer and, well, it becomes what? A kind of administrative center?
A high functioning administrative center, yes.
Yeah.
And a technical guarantor. The sources point to 4 really specific material jobs it had.
Okay, what were they?
First, it was the central organization and storage space, the warehouse. Second, it was the literal kitchen, the place where products were cooked, processed, and crucially distributed and shared.
Wait, a sacred kitchen that just throws out all the usual high-minded ideas about religious space.
It sounds strange to us, but it makes perfect sense if society is built on sharing food. Third, the temple was the space where bodies and sexual relations were regulated, marriages formalized, kinship recorded,
The registry office.
sort of. And fourth, tying it all together, it was the future archive. This is where children were recorded, counted, and tied to specific families. The temple was the guarantor of social continuity. It was literally protecting the future inheritance.
That administrative power. That leads us straight into the economy, which was the third wrong turn. The idea that the economy starts with the commodity, the meta.
That's right. Because the idea that 2 strangers just meet and trade goods assumes that trust, property, and rules of exchange are already in place. Kaçmaz says no. You first need an alliance economy cemented by a really sophisticated triple barter system.
And that system covers the 3 parts of the alliance itself.
Exactly. Let's look at that triple system. First, you have your traditional animal and product exchange food materials.
Okay.
Second, you have the exchange or regulation of adult bodies through marriage. And third, the purchase or sale, or really the sharing of children, which is the economic link between one generation's work and the next generation's survival.
So you can't separate the economic, the biological, and the future. They are all part of one single arrangement. You have to abandon the idea of a purely material exchange.
Absolutely. And this early economy introduces a really critical duality that shapes, well, everything that comes after, especially in Mesopotamia. It's a separation of value into 2 types.
You're talking about menkul and garimenkul, mobile versus immobile value.
Exactly. Mobile value, menkul, is value that moves. Herds, metals, carts. This defines the Akkad, the nomadic society. Their temple can travel with them.
And immobile value.
Garamenkul. It's value tied to the land, the house, the field. When these become sacred, they define Sumer, the settled society, with its permanent constructed temple. This duality is everything.
And this brings us right to the origin of money. We're taught that money is just a neutral tool to make barter easier. Kaçmaz says that's completely wrong.
He says money is the materialization of trust. The choice of gold and silver in Mesopotamia wasn't just some random economic calculation. It was rooted directly in those sacred cosmic dualities of the Akkad-Sumer relationship.
So the metals were used in rituals first, as sacred offerings?
Yes, they needed a measure of value that was as continuous and incorruptible as the alliance itself.
And gold and silver were chosen
Because they became the material equivalents of the cosmos. Gold was the sun, Kunes. Silver was the moon, They stood for skyers, day-night. These metals, tied to that unbreakable sun-moon relationship, became the perfect universal basis for social trust. For Amin, the link between money and the sacred wasn't an accident. It was the entire point. And now I think we can really understand the critique of Marx, Weber, and Durkheim. Their shared blind spot was this fundamental belief that religion is derivative,
that it's a product of social life.
rather than being constitutive, the very thing that creates social life in the first place.
They all started their analysis too late, basically. They assumed the society was already there, so they focused elsewhere. Marx obviously zeroed in on conflict.
Weber focused on meaning, on rationalization.
And Durkheim, he centered his work on representation, on social facts, all useful ideas,
But none of them addressed the moment of origin. They missed the founding contract, and so they misunderstand the power of religion. For example, Weber's work on Protestant ethics is brilliant, but it still treats religion as a catalyst for an economic system that already exists. He doesn't see it as the primary organizer itself.
And Kaçmaz argues Marx's failure is even worse. By defining religion as false consciousness.
As a mere opiate, yeah. He essentially dismisses it from the historical field before he even starts his work. If religion is the first record of the social contract, the original archive of property, bodies, and children, then calling it false is a fatal error.
You're misidentifying the administrative glue as just an illusion.
Exactly.
Which brings us back to today. I mean, capitalism likes to frame itself as totally rational, as having cut itself off from any of these, primitive sacred contracts.
But Sociogony insists that modernism just hides these roots. It misunderstands them, but it can't escape them.
How so?
Just think about property rights or debt or even the value of money. It all relies fundamentally on that principle of emin, on trust, on a contract. The second you withdraw trust from a bank or a government, the system collapses.
Oh, it's the same principle.
It's the exact same principle. The continuity of our social organisms still depends on that foundational agreement to believe in a shared future.
So, at the end of the day, what does this new reading give us? Sociogony is proposing a history that isn't really about conflicts or superstructures on an economic base. It's a history of the expansion and dissolution of alliances. It makes us see the simultaneous birth of society, religion, and the economy. All of them are rooted in that single contractual promise to share a future.
And that simultaneous birth is the key. It's not just historical trivia. By reconnecting money, trust, and those ancient sacred ideas, we can see that our own financial systems are not purely technical. They still run on these deep human contractual foundations. It makes the so-called irrational behavior of markets seem a lot more understandable. It's all about social fear and social trust.
It's a powerful way to reframe things, and it leaves me with one final thought. If the ancient temple was the administrative archive for children, the ultimate symbol and guarantee of the contract's future, what serves that role today, what modern institution is responsible for guaranteeing, archiving, and ritualizing the future of our most fundamental social contracts? It's a question worth mulling over.